Good Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us here on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Alicia Lewis. Well, this morning, tsunami waves hitting the west coast after a massive earthquake in Russia. Those waves forcing thousands of people to evacuate and get to higher ground. And take a look at this map. The earthquake hit off Russia's east coast, pushing waves into Japan, Alaska, Hawaii, and the U.S. west coast. So far, waves have been a few feet, the largest hitting Oregon now. In Hawaii, people are being allowed back into their homes after evacuation orders were lifted. Waves there reached just under 5 feet. And this video shows water creeping up the streets in Honolulu. Several other countries are canceling their tsunami advisories as well. But we did just get new video of the earthquake hitting Russia. Take a look at this. You can see doctors were performing surgery when the shake started. They'll stay calm and with the patient until they stop. And here's some of the damage that the quake caused. You can see parts of this kindergarten destroyed and people starting to clean it up there. Right now, the exact extent of the damage is not clear. Back here at home this morning, the city of St. Paul is under a state of emergency after a massive cyber attack as many city services shut down. Right now, city leaders say they're calling all hands on deck to investigate, from the FBI to the National Guard. Jennifer Hoff has a look at what the attack means for people living in St. Paul.
St. Paul is a city whose mayor says has never experienced a cyber attack until Friday, first notifying the public.
Priority for us has been managing the incident, and we did not want the public communication to happen in a way that made the event itself something worse that we had to respond to.
Melvin Carter says the city shut down most of its systems to contain that attack, meaning library computers don't have internet, something the city says people access 700 times every day. Public pool employees can't scan passes, manually counting swimmers and recording memberships instead, and the impound lot only accepting cash right now to retrieve a vehicle.
One of the things that I've learned through our consultants that we've brought on board is how much more common these types of events are than any of us really know.
It's unclear, though, if residents' data is at risk, although Carter says the city retains very little personal information, still recently upgrading its cybersecurity, implementing multi-factor authentication, hiring a full-time chief information security officer, and conducting internal phishing trainings.
To boost our, one, ability to prevent attacks like this, but then two, our readiness to be able to respond to them if and when something like this were to happen.
Now, one city service that's not affected by this attack is 911. It does remain fully operational. And cybersecurity expert says that St. Paul's decision to shut down major systems indicates that the severity of the situation. So according to Bryce Austin, who's worked in cybersecurity for 20 years, a key indicator of the attack's complexity could be how quickly online services return. If city leaders choose to bring systems back online within a couple of days, he says officials may have a solid understanding of the threat. But if the shutdown persists, it could signal a more sophisticated breach.
Most of the time, these bad guys are after money. That's their goal, plain and simple. But that's not always the case.
That was the case, however, in several previous cyber attacks on major cities across the country, including Atlanta, Dallas, and Columbus. Hundreds of thousands of people were impacted last summer when Columbus was experiencing a cyber attack there. The city is facing multiple lawsuits stemming from that cyber attack, and more than a year later has not released a full, comprehensive report on the investigation. Well, happening today, a man will face a judge for the first time after officials found him wandering naked in the state capitol over the weekend. Dominic Peace was charged with burglary yesterday for entering a government building without consent. New charging documents say he was in the Senate chambers and was also seen rummaging through desks. The charges now also outline how he got in, saying he used a wooden wedge to prop open a door while the Capitol was open and then came back after hours. Now, in light of this incident, Capitol officials are going to be making some security changes. The Department of Public Safety says the state is going to be working with outside experts to review Capitol building security. They're also going to review the response to the lawmaker shootings that happened on June 14th. The department has faced criticism for the lack of coordinated notifications to lawmakers and other law enforcement agencies that morning.
We are going to learn from this, and if there are things that we can do better, I can tell you when they tell us what we can do better, where those gaps are, how we can improve, we will take those and we will do that.
Now, the state may consider reducing public entrances to the Capitol. Conversations about metal detectors and weapons screenings could also be on the table. This morning, the date is on the calendar for two special elections for the state Senate. Voters in Senate districts 29 and 47 are going to be heading to the polls November 4th. These elections are going to fill the seats of Democrat Nicole Mitchell, who resigned last week after being convicted of felony burglary, and Republican Bruce Anderson, who passed away unexpectedly. Candidates have until next week to file, and if necessary, primaries will be held on August 26th. This morning, President Trump is back in Washington with Friday's August 1st deadline looming for new tariffs. U.S. and Chinese negotiators ended 2 days of trade talks with no breakthroughs reached. That as the Federal Reserve is meeting today to decide what to do with interest rates. NBC's Alice Barr has the latest from Washington.
Hi there. President Trump has backed off his threats of trying to fire the Federal Reserve chairman, who he believes has been too late on lowering interest rates. The open conflict raising questions about the Fed's ability to maintain its independence. A lot on the line heading into a critical meeting today. In a big week for the economy, all eyes are on the Federal Reserve and a highly anticipated decision this afternoon on whether to cut interest rates, as President Trump has been pressing for to boost the economy. Though most analysts expect the Fed to hold rates steady, wary of the potential for inflation, with a sweeping new round of tariffs set to hit on Friday. The Yale Budget Lab says product stockpiles have delayed many price increases for now.
What importers were trying to do was try to kind of pull in as much as they could into the economy in order to have to avoid the fact that ultimately they are going to have to raise prices.
While also projecting the tariffs will raise roughly $3 trillion for the U.S. over a decade. President Trump pointing to progress in one of the biggest outstanding trade negotiations with China, as the Treasury Secretary wrapped up talks without a deal, but with a possible extension to keep tariffs from shooting back up.
Well, either approve it or not, but he felt very good about the meeting. Better than he felt yesterday.
The president saying he intends to meet with China's president by the end of the year, as more European leaders voice frustration over the deal reached this week, setting a 15% tariff on most goods entering the U.S. from the European Union.
Dass es nicht so bleibt, wie es bisher war.
The German chancellor saying the tariffs will hurt both the German and American economies, as the French prime minister slammed the deal as an act of submission. Another key economic indicator coming on Friday, the July jobs report, with questions looming about the impact of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown and uncertainty over tariffs for U.S. businesses that import materials from abroad. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Well, this month is the 35th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Over the years, it's done a world of good for those who need it, mandating reasonable accommodations in public spaces and workplaces. But those mandates can fall short in many ways, especially when it comes to outdoor recreation. Just ask the Leary family, whose dad uses a wheelchair.
Whenever we really go places, there's not a lot of places he can get in and out.
Even just like when you come in the door, having a 60-inch space to turn around, you'd really need that space.
So this family is taking accessibility to a whole new level. So come along to see what they're doing to make their lives and so many others better. That's tonight in the KARE 11 News Extra at 10 and streaming right here on KARE 11 Plus. Happening today, applications for the Minnesota e-bike rebate lottery will open. Eligible Minnesotans can apply anytime starting at 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. next Thursday. The Department of Revenue estimates that around 2,800 rebate certificates will be available. They're each worth 75% of eligible expenses, which is up to $750 off a cost of a new e-bike. They're pretty expensive. A live look from Duluth and Minneapolis this morning, where you might notice haze hanging out over Minnesota. Right now, parts of the state are under air quality alerts because of the wildfires in Canada. The worst air is up north near Duluth. Here in the metro, we're seeing moderate levels. The alert's expected to last until 5 p.m. on Saturday, and we're going to check in with KARE 11's weather team for the latest on that forecast when we come back.